If you like sushi, please raise your hand. I'm impressed. You can put your hands down now. Thank you. I'm sure some of you in the audience have been to some really great sushi restaurants. You know, they can have some pretty strange stuff there. For example, one of the Japanese delicacies that recently became very popular in New York is called abalone. Abalone is kind of a water slug. And generally speaking, it looks like something you would put in your mouth only if you lost some weird bet. Now, and I know it's going to be difficult, I want you to forget the slimy slug and think about your absolute favorite food. What is the one dish you can have forever and never get tired of? Think about it. We usually think of a home-cooked meal made by our mom or dad, and since we all have different moms and dads, we have the naive notion that our personal taste is personal, maybe even unique or special. But is it really? That's exactly what I would like to speak about today. I come from a family who cooks for a living. Literally speaking, food is my mother's tongue. And I've been exploring the notion of personal taste for over a decade, reading and researching and talking to people and looking into their plates. I love looking into other people's plates because food talks. It tells stories. And I would like to share some of these stories with you tonight on the path to reevaluate some of our presumptions about personal taste. Whatever you do with it at the end is absolutely up to you. Or as my mom says, it's your life. You can ruin it any way you want. My first story takes us to the Philippines. I was traveling and lecturing in the Philippines with a well-known Israeli foodie, and he proclaimed that Filipino food was just terrible. He said it was too sweet and too loud, and the truth is, I didn't find it all that great either. But if we consider our starting point, that a home-cooked meal is the best, then I guess for 100 million Filipinos, Philippine cuisine is just fine, and we are the ones that have no clue. My second story takes us to Ethiopia. I was working on an in-depth article about Ethiopian cuisine. American star chef Marcus Samuelsson, that's him with a friend, had just opened Mercato 55, serving hot Ethiopian cuisine to the New York diners. I was so excited about this opportunity to speak with Marcus Samuelsson himself. However, when I mentioned it to my friends and my editors, I got one of the following responses. What are they going to serve there? Empty plates? Haha. And Ethiopian food is just not tasty. I had to check these claims for myself. So I went online and used the New York Times restaurant browser to look for other Ethiopian restaurants. The New York Times has a very precise system of categorization in its restaurant browser. They have Irish restaurants and tapas restaurants and Greek restaurants and Ukrainian and Vietnamese restaurants. They even have kosher restaurants. But guess what? Ethiopian food could only be found under the gigantic category African cuisine, meaning 1.2 billion people living on a continent that makes up 20% of the dry land of the world are all lumped together under one category, African cuisine. It took me 2 weeks to finish my research, but by the time I was done, Mercato 55, this pioneer restaurant serving upscale Ethiopian food, had already shut down. The New Yorkers just didn't come. The way we treat Ethiopian and Filipino food made me wonder, if we regard food as a reflection of everything else, then there has to be a reason why Ethiopian food is not given its proper place. Let's try and think why. Ethiopia, located at the bottom list of GDP worldwide, is part of a continent that is primarily linked with poverty, war, AIDS. Who wants to be part of that? In many senses, the world is like a huge classroom. Every country has a different status in the global arena, and a country's popularity will determine its success in the international culinary list and will decide whether ordinary diners, like ourselves, will readily part from our $10 or $100 for one of its dishes. What will determine this status? Most of the time, it's international relationships, or in other words, money. Not quite convinced yet? So let's take India, for example. Look at the way Indian food has thrived in the past few years. For a long time, Indian food was almost restricted to casual, everyday, not too expensive restaurants. But what happened after India's economy picked up, making it more popular in the global classroom? Fancy Indian restaurants pop up everywhere, and the demand for Indian food increased. This takes me to my first insight. Our palate can develop and change, but it is dictated by forces much stronger than our taste buds experiences. That's why I asked you if you like sushi, because when I was growing up, there were no sushi restaurants in Israel. Sushi was the kind of food, really, that you said yuck on, biting into raw fish that was just skin. It was as crazy as biting that slimy abalone slug that I showed you before. But we learned to like sushi because it made us cool. Our palate, our personal taste, is much more a social taste than we would like to think it is. I know there are a few of you in the audience who are thinking, well, I've always loved sushi. I never found it repulsive. And that's okay. So how about cigarettes? How did the first cigarette you smoked taste like? It was disgusting. You choked on it. It wasn't healthy, but you still eat another one. How about alcohol? Spicy food? Coffee? So why not Ethiopian food? Our personal taste, as I said, is much more a social taste than we would like to think. It is not just determined by the sensations we have in our mouth, but rather it follows the directions it is given according to what is right to like. But wait a second. Does it mean our taste buds have no say? What about biology? Doesn't it play a part? I mean, there has to be some food that we do like because it is objectively tasty. Don't you think so? There is, in fact, a biological component to our taste, but it is very primitive and very basic. It's not cool. It's not well educated. It's about survival. This takes me to my next insight. What do we like to eat from an evolutionary point of view? Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I was invited to a grand culinary event. The world's most acclaimed chef, Alain Ducasse, invited some of his closest friends to celebrate his restaurant's anniversary. Or as he put it in the invitation, 200 chefs, 300 Michelin stars. For the first time in the history, the entire international culinary elite was there in one room. I'm talking about names like Robuchon, Redzepi, Hermé, Massimo Bottura, even the Prince of Monaco himself was there. Wow, really. And the morning of this big gala dinner, there was a press conference. And Ducasse was asked how he changed in the past 25 years, and he replied without hesitation. He said, "I cook today with no seasoning or fat. I want to feel the real taste of things." Beautiful. Then the evening came, and it was directed in the most classical French manner. A quiet, almost ghostly service. Pouring stock, shaving truffles, refilling the champagne, a profound display of professionalism. And we were all sitting there, surrounded by people we hardly know, eating in silence, and thinking of only one thing: salt. Oh, my dear God, how I wish I had one of those little bags from the airplane with salt to season this beautiful but tasteless risotto. Ducasse's blend food was a clear declaration, and yes, he did it on purpose. He's such a genius. He showed us how we almost lost the ability to appreciate the real taste of things. So what do we like to eat from an evolutionary perspective? Obviously, we like salt. Our body cannot function without a certain amount of salt. So from infancy, we learn to identify salty tastes and to like them. What else do we like? We definitely like sweets. Sugar is an immediate source of energy. Sugar is our fuel. You know, when women used to go out foraging, looking for all kinds of plants and weeds to bring back to their tribe, if they happened to fall on a raspberry bush or an apricot tree, this one, they would gobble up quickly and not say a word to their neighbors. People used to laugh at me because for years I thought I was addicted to sugar. But the truth is, we're all addicted to sugar. We're born that way. Let's embrace it. It's not our fault. The last thing we like is a little bit different. It's crispy food. An American study found that when you add the word crispy to the packaging, you increase sales by 30%. There's no other adjective that has a similar effect on us. But why do we like crispy food? I mean, Mother Nature doesn't have too many crispy foods to offer. Some insects, a tree bark, apple, uncooked turnip, but overall, not a lot of variety. So let me share with you a chef's secret on how we draw the line between crispy and non-crispy food. It's temperature. There are hundreds of proteins that develop crispness when exposed to high temperatures. And when Homo sapiens learned how to control fire, a whole new variety of foods became available, but also crispy, including that mammoth carcass over there that used to give us awful diarrhea and had now turned into a viable option. So there we go. We love crispy, salty, and sweet, all of us. That includes you. It includes you. It definitely includes me. All over the world, even Ethiopians, even Japanese, even Filipinos, even Trump, even Hillary. And the truth is, there's no problem with this biological inclination, except for the fact that the food corporations also know it. They discovered that in order to sell us food, it just has to be salty, sweet, or crispy. It doesn't need to contain anything else. As a matter of fact, it can be a blank paper, as long as it was deep-fried, covered with a little bit of salt and sugar, and we'll devour it, because biology has determined that for us. Walking into a supermarket these days is like walking onto a pornographic set. It sets off our primal needs and desires and exploits them. We're surrounded by products that stimulate us in the most twisted and unnatural manner. We live in a world of food porn. Underneath our shopping carts, underneath everything we regard as personal, there's an intricate web of powerful forces that don't have the slightest concern of our health, our nutrition, our well-being. So let me ask you this again. Between the weight of biology and the weight of social influence, really, how personal is your personal taste? I know it is difficult to start regarding your personal taste as a mere subject of social manipulation and greed. Sometimes it is fashion that dictates it, in other times it's the evolution to eat and to like the wrong things, and as it seems most of the time, we just have hardly any control over it. So what should we do about it? Let me promise you one thing. You don't have to start eating only buckwheat, and you don't need to check a country's GDP before you reserve a table for dinner. You just have to take it into consideration. The next time you load your shopping cart, the next time you order takeout, and the next time you judge a dish or a cuisine and say that it's simply not tasty, as if it was a fact, stop for a moment and think, who is speaking right now? An international popularity list? An Instagram account that you follow? A sugar-craving beast? Or is it really, finally, you? Thank you.